How's it going, guys? We're back here with Josh Von Pohl, and I was just mentioning the good news story of the week, which had to do with France shutting down all of its coal plants by 2021, 2 years earlier than originally planned. And I was saying, I think this is a great story because I think that renewable energy is where the free market's at. And, you know, I don't want to put so much on Trump in this episode, but, you know, Trump literally has been putting tariffs on solar panels that have come from outside the country into here. Now, I can understand if you want to say everything wants to be American made and everything like that, but you know, if businesses in this country are buying solar panels from other countries, I don't see a problem with that. And I disagree with the idea of tariffs in general. But I think renewable energy is where the free market is at, and hopefully the world, the United States, everything can go according to plan, and we can actually get that going sooner than later. That's just my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no. The coal industry needs to go because the renewable energy is a lot better for our planet.
Yeah.
Especially if you believe global warming is a thing, which, I mean, it is. Science is definitely behind it. Planet is getting hotter, but yeah, we need to do everything we can to limit what we humans do to the planet. And that, yeah, it definitely starts with eliminating the use of coal and gas. I think America should try to set goals to switch to electric cars and everything else by...
Or hybrids at least, yeah.
Yeah, hybrids at least. But there should be no... We should start switching out of gas-powered, like fully gas-powered vehicles.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would add on to that is, like I mentioned, the free market is basically doing it itself, and I don't think government should force anybody into anything that is going to cost them any extra money, and I don't think that anything should be forced onto people to where it hurts any businesses in any excruciating way. That's just my thoughts. In terms of everything else, as long as everything checks out, I have no problem with it. As long as there's no regulations or laws put into place that force businesses or individuals to change their way of life, I'm perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, very true.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about while you're on here, Josh, is this story that came out about an hour and a half ago. And this completely flips the role of what we have seen with everything when it comes to sexual harassment and misconduct. So this is the headline out of ABC News. Man accuses California Me Too leader of sexual misconduct. Unbelievable. This is a story that you would not likely see every other day. So this is the story. California Democratic Assemblywoman Cristina Garcia, the head of the Legislative Women's Caucus and a leading figure in the state's anti-sexual harassment movement, is accused of groping a male staffer from another lawmaker's office. Daniel Fierro told the Associated Press on Thursday that Garcia stroked his back, squeezed his ass, basically, and attempted to touch his crotch in the dugout after a legislative softball game in 2014. Which, that's just weird, in my opinion, the fact they're even having legislative softball games. That just seems so lame. Fierro didn't report it at the time, but in January told his former boss, Democratic Assemblywoman man Ian Calderon, who reported it to Assembly leaders. The Assembly is now investigating Garcia. Politico first reported Fierro's accusation. Garcia's spokeswoman, Tiala Schaff, said the Assemblywoman learned January 23rd a complaint was filed but was given no details and only learned the specifics of the allegations from Politico. You know, that's something you're not going to see every day. The flip side of sexual harassment and assault. And I think a lot of people forget about this is, this does happen to men as well. It's not just stuff that happens to women. And I know a lot of feminists out there will claim that they do talk about that kind of stuff. If they do talk about it, it's not covered, or it's just not heard. But I don't hear that even talked about by a lot of feminists out there. And I'm not saying, because obviously there are a lot of women out there who do face people who are horrible. There's a lot of men out there who are just terrible people, just like everybody's terrible people. There's a lot of great people as well. But, this is something I don't think that gets enough coverage, is the fact that, yes, it happens to women a lot, but a lot of people forget that this stuff can happen to men as well. It's not just a men to woman thing. It could be a man to a man thing. It could be a woman to a woman thing. It could be a woman to a man thing. And I think a lot of people forget that. And, we'll see what ends up happening with this. It's definitely something that is not a good story. But I just wish we would get this side of the coverage a little bit more. And I wish that we would actually, in terms of sexual harassment in general, get actually details of what happened. Now, the thing that's hard about that is people are really not going to be willing to talk about what happened to them, because that's a very emotional moment. That's a very tough thing to talk about. But we never see, when it comes to these cases, besides like the Michigan State thing that just happened, you never see the due process and the actual legal system take its place with the justice system when it comes to this. We're just supposed to believe in what accusers say all the time. And I'm not going to blindly believe what they say. I'm not going to blindly disbelieve what they say. But I think when it comes to this issue in general, people need to understand that it's a problem first, and then we actually need to look at possible solutions to have this limited in the future at college campuses, but also out in public places. And so I just wish we would actually get more coverage of what actually occurs in these cases. That way we can actually learn more how to solve the issue and how to stop it. What are your thoughts on the whole issue of sexual harassment and assault? What are your thoughts on the whole issue in general?
Every time I see that stuff, I try to do what I think is best and step in and help. But yeah, it should never happen. I don't understand the guys who do it or the women who do it. It's just so much. It's so disrespectful. It's such an invasion of a person's privacy, and I don't get how people could come to actually doing it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand that either. It's like, if you're trying to get into the mindset of a person who would do that act, I mean, is it a person who would be not as comfortable around girls? And I don't know, like, what kind of person does that? Like, that's the thing I try to think whenever it comes to really any crime. I try to kind of get into that mindset and try to, like, understand, not necessarily understand from their point of view, but kind of like try to give myself an idea of why they would commit such a horrible act. And I don't have an answer for that, because A, it's not something that I want to try to think about 24/7, but B, I don't even know if it's possible to get into that person's mindset personally. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I just try and empathize with someone like that. It's just, the consequences of your actions, and I just don't see how it would ever be worth it. 'Cause, I mean, like, sex is awesome and all, but, like, going to jail for the rest of your life and being butt-fucked by some big-ass dude, that would automatically ever erase the thought of ever wanting to do that. It's just like, the people who do it are just plain stupid. And
well, it's just like, this is basic things you're going to learn when you're a kid, when you're like 5, 6 years old. And that's the thing for me. I think what honestly comes down to, at least a good aspect of it, comes down to parenting. And it's a matter of how you parent your child. It's a matter of how this child is brought up and raised, their behavior, where they live in, all that kinds of things. Because, I mean, respect and how to treat people is something you learn when you're very young. And it's instilled in you, it's ingrained in you. So, obviously, the person, if they're doing something like that, skips an entire part of their childhood and what they're supposed to learn, and they're forced to kind of learn it through other people. And if other people aren't as good influences, I mean, this goes with the same with any crime, but I mean, that's my only answer. I know that's a very basic answer, and I know there's more to it than that, but I think honestly, when it comes to these kinds of things, it does come down to parenting in a way.
Yeah, no, it all starts with the parents. It has to.
Yeah, it has to. I mean, it comes to the point where obviously when you get to a certain age, you should know right from wrong. And you should be able to distinguish that through other people, through what you see. But I mean, once again, it depends on where that person lives, their everyday life, their mental health. all those factors come into play when it comes to anybody committing any crime. So yeah, I don't know what else I can say on that, because I've never known a criminal. I've never been a criminal. I've never done anything that I've had a criminal record for, because there's no reason for me to. I'm perfectly happy with the life I live in. I'm perfectly happy with the people that are around me, and I live in a very healthy household. And it's sad that not everybody can't say that. And I just hope that there is a solution for these coming forward. I just want to know, like, do you think that there is anything that colleges, schools, or anything can do to limit these cases?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, other than if you see something that you might think is wrong, then I'd say speak up. But other than that, I would have no idea how to stop these attacks from happening. Other than, I guess, teaching, as dumb as it sounds, teaching like more classes on sexual harassment, why it's wrong.
Well, right, exactly. And the thing is, when it comes to sexual harassment, because a lot of people say, 1 in 5 women are sexually harassed or abused in college. The truth is, when it comes to statistics, you're never really going to know that number, because there's so many people that don't even come out and state it. And so I don't think it's 1 in 5. I think that number is actually inflated, and it does kind of not even define sexual harassment and assault in a way that is makes it actually look like an actual crime. Usually it's just like a joke or something that is said by a guy when they're casually walking by down the street. Like, I'm sorry, a cat call or something going down the street to me isn't sexual harassment or assault, personally. Like, I view that as such a higher version of a crime, of an action that person is taking upon that other person that isn't consensual.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my thoughts on it, and I think that we both agree on that. Let me change my mic real quick. Sorry, I had a little audio difficulty there, but we're back. But I think that pretty much covers that. So besides that, I was going to ask you. So I started this last week with Miles, and I wanted to go ahead and continue it with you, Josh. So is there anything that you have seen in sports or anything in politics, any stories that you would like to bring up, any other things that you would like to mention that we haven't already talked about, that you find that you found interesting within the last week or two?
Let's talk about Tiger. He's on the return, man. Did you watch that tournament? Yes,
I did, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was actually something I was thinking of bringing up a few days ago with you, and then it completely went out of my mind. So Tiger he's back playing professional golf, and he made the cut in his first tournament back. And it was down at Torrey Pines in San Diego. He actually played pretty well. He was it a top 20 finish or a top 25? I know it was like top 30 for sure. I don't know how high he got up there. I know he finished like 2 under or 3 under for the tournament.
I believe he was 22nd.
22nd. Okay. No, I mean, that's great. Yeah, I think, and I was talking about this with, I think, Brandon when he was on. I think there's definitely a possibility for Tiger to come back, and he could definitely win a couple tournaments this year. What realistically do you expect to see out of Tiger? What are you hoping? Well, first, what are you hoping to see? Which is pretty much win every tournament, I'd probably guess. But what are you expecting to see out of Tiger and his performance for this upcoming year?
I know he's got all efforts pointed towards the Masters, and I have all confidence in him that he could win that tournament. But I hope this year he accomplishes, at least wins 1 major, if not 2, and at least 5 PGA Tour events. I think is what he's going to get done.
That'd be phenomenal. I'll tell you that. If he manages to somehow pull that off, I would be ecstatic. I'd be jumping out the roofs.
I mean, his swing it's there. He just has to. I mean, this last tournament, he was hooking the ball. I mean, he was all over the place off the tee.
Right.
The scrambling saved him so much. But if he can get that driver down and get on the fairway every single time, it's game over. Because
right.
he's just so accurate with his irons.
Right.
He almost
I'm
hit
going to
the
have to
hole in
cut
one.
you off. We're going to get you guys going with part 6 here in 1 sec.